We are back with test number 9 this week, and I've been saying for a while here on FM23 that I think you really do need defensive midfielders and a lot of tactics to make them tick. So for this week, test number 9, I've decided to go with 3 defensive midfielders to see if we can make a tactic fit. And I think you'll be pretty pleased with the results. But before we look into the tactic itself, as always, you can download all of the tactics from the Dropbox folder from the link in the description or from our Discord server where you can join in with over 1,500 users discussing tactics and sharing your own test results with other people as well. So get involved in that community, and I think it's an excellent opportunity to expand your knowledge of Football Manager in general, but specifically the FM23 title. Now, let's take a look at the tactic. All right, so this is the tactic. It is a 4-3-3 narrow, but with no CMs or AMs. So we've got this like 4-3-0-0-3 kind of shape as well. But this tactic is extremely focused on a high risk, high reward kind of outcomes. And you'll see that in the results and especially in the highlights. But we can take a look at some of the foundations for why that's true here when we look at the tactics. So you can see here we do have IWBs on attack to go with a much higher defensive line, which is something we saw in a previous tactic and something that can very much drive high goal scoring output. And I think, again, that's true here in this tactic as well. So they are also set to press much more often. We're playing double pressing forward. So that means these roles have tackle harder as a default, which is going to be something we get to here in a second. The Volantes have been turned on to tackle harder. So have these IWBs are supposed to tackle harder as well. And these ball playing defenders. So when you combine the tackle harder instruction with the high press set to much more often, you'll see a lot of very aggressive play by your team trying to win that ball back. And this carries with it some risk of yellow and red cards to try and win the ball back. But if you're seeing results in most matches anyway, is that a risk that's kind of worth it? And that's something we'll talk about in this video, especially when we get to the results. The Anchorman is also set to tackle harder. This target forward is a vanilla position, but we've gone through all of the positions. Now you should be able to pick up, if you are playing on Xbox, you should be able to pick up the instructions from those video pauses. If we're looking here at the possession instructions, we're playing out of defense, and once again we have the overlaps turned on despite playing IWBs. And again, if we go back and look at the way this is set up, these pressing forwards are set to stay wider. So with the pressing forwards set to stay wider, the Volante kind of underlaps them. We don't want the IWBs just chasing the Volante down, right? So having this overlap instruction on the Volante does kind of keep them outside, on the IWBs, my apologies, does keep them outside of the Volantes and does create more channels for your players to attack and different kinds of overloads to create within the tactic. So the higher tempo as well really makes sure the ball is moving. These IWBs get the ball, they get rid of the ball, and they kind of facilitate a lot of the offense. So that's the tactic. It is very risky, but I think something that will also, you'll see, is very powerful too. So high risk, high reward. If that's what you're looking for in a Football Manager tactic, this might be one that you should try out. Let's take a look at some of the highlights to give you an idea for how this tactic kind of scores its goals and plays out. All right, so we're going to start this highlight with a throw-in, which is being taken by Mela here on the left-hand side. And then you'll kind of see once the tactic and once the ball kind of gets backed out to a high point in the defense, where the kind of attacking comes from in this tactic. So there's a couple things we'll talk about and look at here in this tactic, and you'll see it kind of go to work. So it's a simple little here routine. Mela has the ball. There's not a lot of space there, so he backs it out. And so right here, you're seeing a lot of players kind of return to some of their natural positions. We have, like, our defenders are back. Mela's on the left. We're going to have an IWB on the right. And something that I want you to think about is, remember that's overlap instruction that we have on in the tactic to influence the IWBs to stay a little bit wider in their channels. And Mela hasn't dove inside Hateboer, who is the recipient of the next ball, or a ball reasonably soon, is also staying wider than you maybe would think and overlapping, so getting a little bit deeper in that wide area than you would think from an IWB as well. So we'll hit play again and kind of watch this develop here. Mela to Coop Miners, and Coop Miners here sprays it wide, and once again, it's Hateboer. The other IWB now here is out wide in this channel, well, wide-ish, right? As wide as you would want your IWB to be. But then look at the runners in the box, because remember, we have 3 strikers, they're all here, and we have 2 volantes, and we have Mela, the IWB on attack. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players attacking the box here. Most of them running towards the 6-yard box, but then Malik probably arriving late near to the penalty spot. And you can see what Hateboer has available to him. Again, he crosses this ball. It does take a little bit of a defensive error for this ball to squeak through, but the eventual goal scorer is one of the volantes, Darun, who is literally a DM inside the 6-yard box. Boom, there it is. Duvan Zapata is able to unsettle the defenders, the ball goes through, and Darun scores. So it is a IWB to Volante goal, and you kind of saw how those players got into those positions to be effective here on this goal. All right, on this highlight, we're going to see the pressing forward stay wider instruction come into play. And then again, the offensive movement by those IWBs on attack when they're off the ball and the ball is outside of their channel, they will start to come inside and not hold that overlap. That overlap is more important when the ball is on their side of the pitch. Now, so we'll take a look here at what is happening here. Gym City, ball into the wide channel for that pressing forward. Ademola Lookman. He's got 4 players in the box, okay? So he's got Ederson, who is the left-sided volante. He's got Hoyland, and he's got Muriel. Those are the other 2 strikers. And then he's also got Darun, right? So we have 2 volantes, 2 strikers in the box already at this point. And we have Lookman on the ball. Now, the person who you can't see just off screen, but you can start to see his shadow, is the other IWB, Hateboer, streaking in to be the 5th attacker in the box with just 4 defenders guarding the 5th attacker. And you'll see what happens as this ball comes across. Lookman is unmarked. Hateboer unmarked, and a great finish into the near post, and it's another goal. All right, we'll start this highlight showing off some of the aggressive pursuit of the pressing in this tactic. So look at here, you see Zapata is all the way back here on offense. Hateboer gets the interception. Now Muriel backs it out here once possession's gained, and we have Gym City on the ball here. So if you kind of take stock of where everyone is, we have the IWB on the left, you have Pasalic as one of the volantes, you've got Scalvini as the anchor, and then you've got other volantes and IWBs here behind my head on the right side of the screen. So Gym City, though, is going to play the ball out here to Sapi, and I just want this highlight to kind of be a reminder of how much the high press does at winning that ball back, and how much the pressing forwards collapse back on the defense to also help win that ball back. Remember, Zapata was all the way back at the corner of the 18 to help Gym City win that ball back, and now Zapata is all the way back in position here in the middle of the pitch. So it just kind of goes to show how much the offense does to help with the press. And Gym City now on this ball is going to play it out to the IWB, who, as a reminder, IWBs with a little bit of vision and passing can be deadly on diagonals and balls over the top, which is something we've seen in some of the other tactics on the channel, but something you'll see here on this goal as well. Sapi hits an early ball. Zapata runs onto it. A great finish by getting to that head, getting his head to the ball before the keeper can get there. Maybe a little bit of a rash decision by the Inter Milan keeper, but a great goal, and really kind of highlights how far pressing forwards will go back to help with the press, how aggressive the team pursues the ball, and the kind of vision that you need from your IWBs to really help capitalize on the diagonal balls and the balls over the top that they will often have available to them. It's a great tactic, and let's take a look at some of the results and really kind of see what this tactic has to offer you in ways that you could maybe improve it as well. All right, let's take a look at the table, and you can see Atalanta did indeed finish as champions, 4 points clear of AC Milan. Now, I think the impressive thing about this tactic is two things. One, 84 points has kind of been the threshold for a very good tactic in the hands of Atalanta, but also only 4 losses. And if you take a closer look at some of the numbers, it also had 96 goals scored, which isn't quite the highest output of any tactic on the channel this year, but it is very good and very promising, while only conceding 38, which is like, I don't know, 5th or 6th best in the division, it looks like, and only 8 points better than Milan and Napoli, who had the best defenses on the year. So it's a tactic that has 3 DMs, right? So if you're able to settle into a defensive shape, you can stop the opponent from scoring. Now, the 96 goals is clearly the headline here, though, but there is another stat that we should look at quickly in the numbers. So if you go to the team overview page, you'll see what I mean. So team overview stats page, yellow cards, 156 yellows. Next best for Lazio, 110. Red cards, Atalanta picked up 8 on the season. Now, clearly that is a casualty of the high press, closing down much more often, and tackle harder on like what, 7, 8, 9 players in the tactic have tackle harder. The only players that don't being the goalie and the target forward. That's going to lead to some cards, and that's what you're seeing here in the tactic. Now, high risk, high reward. There are ways for you to kind of play with this tactic a little bit. Like, where do you want to maybe take that instruction off and try to see if you can find a way to minimize these cards and maximize a few more points out of your season? So that is something for you to figure out, kind of tweaking and pushing this tactic to the limits, because I think it has the bones and the promise to be extremely strong. You just got to get rid of some of those discipline problems. And to score 84 points and have the goal difference and defense that this tactic was able to show with 8 red cards on the season and 156 yellows. Our defenders were constantly up against it, playing on yellows all season. This doesn't even count games missed by suspension from our starters from yellow card accumulation, which is also kind of off the charts. So I do think this tactic has an excellent shape to it and excellent strengths of goal scoring, but how much of that is due to the aggression? If we back off the aggression of our defense and winning that ball back, how much will that decrease or depress the goal output? That's something for you to figure out as you play with this tactic, and I hope that you have a lot of success and as much fun with it as I have had developing it and trying to get it to this point. So as always, tactic available for download in the Dropbox folder in the description, and by joining the Discord server, there's a channel where you can download all of the tactics that have been put out on the series thus far, and all the way back to FM22 as well, if you are still on that game. So finally, please consider joining the Patreon server, my Patreon. We already have 2 Patreons who have joined. That's Ultra and Monte Benchik. Thank you so much for your support of the channel for these past few months. It means a lot to me. As always, I'm also streaming on Twitch, where I'm trying to win the Club World Cup from outside of Europe. That link is also, again, in the description. And finally, make sure you like and subscribe, and let me know and get your thoughts involved in the comments as well. Let's increase the visibility of this video, the channel in general, and I could really use all of your help. So please get involved in all of the places where you can find me online talking about Football Manager 23. And I will be back. Maybe I will be a slight break for the holidays. We'll be back with test number 10 before you know it. And hopefully test number 10 will be performed on the new database, but we'll see. All right, until then, bye.